Hi, I'm Stuart Malina, Music Director of the Greenwich Symphony Orchestra, and today I'm here to invite you to join us for our March concerts. The dates are Saturday, March 22nd at 7:30 in the evening and Sunday, March 23rd at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. As always, they will take place in the very beautiful Performing Arts Center at Greenwich High School. It's an all-American program, music by American composers, but all written within a fairly short span of time, the earliest having been written in 1925 and the latest in 1938. And what all of these pieces have in common is firstly, they're written in a style that was not in fashion in those days. At the time, most of the music that was being written by quote-unquote great composers was in a atonal vocabulary, meaning sounds that weren't based on major and minor chords and the harmonies that ensued from those chords. But Howard Hanson, Aaron Copland, and of course George Gershwin all wrote these pieces in a language that's thoroughly based on traditional Western harmony that you would find in anything that was written in the 19th century. The other thing that these all have in common is that they all sound American. What that means, I will leave to you. And I sometimes feel that they sound American because all the music that came after these composers was very much based on their sound. So if someone wanted to write music about the Old West, whether it's for the movies or for ballet or for concert, they made it sound like Aaron Copland. If people wanted to write jazzy music, they made it sound like George Gershwin, and likewise with Howard Hanson, if they wanted to write something in a lyrical, almost song-like fashion, they used Howard Hanson as a model. So the first piece on our program is the first of the great American ballets by Aaron Copland. He wrote three about the Old West. The first of them is the one we're playing, Billy the Kid. He then would go on to write Appalachian Spring and Rodeo, or Rodeo. Billy the Kid, of course, tells the story of the classic anti-hero, Billy the Kid, the Western outlaw who comes to an untimely end. He's captured and put to death. But it really focuses more on not just the character of Billy the Kid, but the whole sense of the American frontier and the world of the Wild West in which he lived. It opens extremely grandly with a picture of kind of the landscape of the frontier. You have several dances that include not just American folk songs, which was a passion of Aaron Copland's, but also Mexican songs and dances that come from south of the border. Aaron Copland was deeply interested in the music of Mexico, and he wrote a couple of pieces that were devoted just to that sound, but you hear it already in Billy the Kid. It's a marvelous piece. It tells the story quite nicely. We'll be doing the suite version of it. It's about 10 minutes less than the full ballet, but it covers all of the highlights ranging from both the famous dances, the music of the frontier, the death of Billy the Kid, the celebration when he's captured, and also the gunfight. It's one of the few depictions of an outlaw gunfight that I can think of in classical music. The second piece on our program was written in 1930 by Howard Hanson. Howard Hanson was an extremely important figure in American music, not just for the music that he wrote himself, but for the influence that he had on composers after him, and the influence that he had on American music education. He was the director of the Eastman School of Music, which is still one of the leading conservatories in the country. And so he was multidimensional in his influence in America. The piece we're going to play is his second symphony, which he calls the Romantic Symphony. As in general in music, the use of the word romantic doesn't necessarily mean love. It's not romantic like what happens on Valentine's Day, but rather romantic as a throwback to the Romantic period in the 19th century in music and in literature. And the Romantic period is where art was no longer just art for art's sake, but rather art conveyed emotion, it conveyed affect. Having said that, you do get some pretty mushy-gushy romantic in the love sense themes in this piece. And there are some very famous themes. The very beginning of the piece might be familiar to you if you're a science fiction movie fan, because it was used at the end of the movie Alien for the credits. And it does have kind of a creepy feeling. And it's based on combinations of unrelated chords. So at the very beginning, you have a G chord on the bottom and a D flat chord on top of it. G and D flat being a diminished fourth. That's as far as you can get between two notes in the harmonic circle of fifths, but I'm not going to get into that now. And so you have this sound, and this harmony you're going to hear a lot in this piece, and it will then resolve into F minor on the bottom and G major on top. So this is what this progression sounds like, and you'll hear this at the beginning and also throughout this wonderful symphony. And so it sets up kind of a mysterious opening to this piece, but the piece becomes extremely dynamic. And in fact, I think cinematic is a good description of the Romantic Symphony, in that it paints vast landscapes that you can easily imagine accompanying a film. The famous, well, I'll call it the love theme for lack of a better word, but the romantic theme that you hear midway through this first movement and will come back in each of the subsequent movements in very dramatic fashion. It goes like this. And as I say, the piece is cyclical, meaning that material from the first movement will come into the second and again into the last. And the final theme that I'll play for you is the opening theme of the second movement. And the reason that I think this is notable is because I think it's perhaps the most simply tonal theme that I can think of in the entire 20th century. It's in C major, a key with no sharps and flats, and it's made up of just very beautiful presentation of major chords. This too will develop into much different stuff, and again, as I said, the major theme from the first movement will return. And then in the last movement, this also might sound a little bit familiar if you're a filmophile, because the music was clearly influential on composer John Williams when he was composing the famous bicycle chase scene in E.T. You'll hear a lot of that in this. And one thing you can say about Howard Hanson is not only can he spin a beautiful melody, but he's a master of orchestration. He knows how to take a symphony orchestra and make it sound magical. This is one of my favorite American works, and every time I perform it, people in the audience are like, why isn't this piece performed all the time? It's such a beautiful piece. So I hope you will have the same impression of it. The final piece on the program is Gershwin's Concerto in F. I'm sure all of you know the story of Rhapsody in Blue. In 1924, Gershwin writing it for the big performance at Aeolian Hall in New York in February of 1924. Well, it was an enormous success, obviously, Gershwin performing it himself. And under 2 years later, in 1925, he premiered the Concerto in F, which is a full-blown piano concerto. Rhapsody in Blue runs about 16 minutes, and as wonderful as it is, it's a short-ish piece. This is very much in the tradition of the great piano concertos, except you still hear all of those elements of jazz within the music that Gershwin brings to bear in, that he brought to bear in Rhapsody in Blue. He again brings them back in the Concerto in F. Starting right away, the first theme that you'll hear the piano play is basically entirely made up of blue notes. Blue notes being the notes that are not part of a scale, a C major scale. The blue notes would be these flat third and sevenths that give you that kind of sound. Those are blue notes. And the beginning of this piece, extremely beautiful, is a little bit odd. You don't really know harmonically where you are. But a beautiful melody it is, and this is not surprising at all for Gershwin. Gershwin might be the greatest songwriter that America has produced. His ability to write melodies rivals anybody in classical music, including people like Mozart and Schubert, the great songwriters. And so throughout this piece, you get lyricism, you get beautiful melodies, but you also get syncopation. And you'll hear, so syncopation is where you have rhythms that aren't straight rhythms. So instead of 1, 2, 1, 2, you might get bum, 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 kind of that Charleston rhythm. And you'll hear this a lot in this piece, that particular kind of rhythm, whether it's the piano playing or any one of the melodies presented in a syncopated fashion. And I guess the most syncopated area, at the end of the first movement, you'll get a fun section where the piano plays this. And so on and so forth. Now, you're probably thinking, boy, he seems to know this piece very well. Well, that's because I am going to be playing this piece with the orchestra, and our associate conductor, Ari Rudiakov, will be conducting it. I will conduct the first half of the program, but I'm very excited to be playing this concerto with the orchestra. I could talk for hours about the Concerto in F, but I really think it's a piece that you need to hear. It speaks so beautifully on its own. One last thing I'll say about it is the last movement is kind of a toccata, so very fast moving stuff. It goes like this. And continues along that vein. If you've seen the movie American in Paris, the one with Gene Kelly, in this movie you hear and see Oscar Levant play this piece. Oscar Levant was a friend of Gershwin's, played all of Gershwin's music. And in this movie, not only is he playing the piano part, he's also conducting, and he's also playing every instrument in the orchestra. I will not be doing that, but I am very excited to play the piano. It should be a wonderful program. It's 3 terrific pieces of music that I think the audience is going to absolutely bathe in and enjoy. So I hope you'll be there again. It's Saturday, the 22nd of March at 7:30 in the evening, Sunday, the 23rd of March at 3 o'clock in the afternoon at the Performing Arts Center at Greenwich High School. Hope to see you there.